You care what people think more than you want to admit, more than you even notice. Every time you speak, decide, or create, there's a quiet voice wondering how it might come across. You start shaping parts of your life around reactions that haven't even happened, and slowly, without realizing it, you become a performer in your own day-to-day life. The truth is simple. Most of your stress comes from an imagined audience. You rehearse your lines, edit your personality, and shrink your choices. Not because you want to, but because you fear being judged for who you really are. The Stoics understood this long before social pressure existed the way it does today. They knew that the heaviest chains are often invisible. And they knew that the more you try to please everyone, the further you drift from yourself. You're not tired of people. You're tired of acting. And this is where your freedom begins. Chapter 1. What you control. Chapter 1. Reality versus imagination versus what you imagine. A lot of the pressure you feel doesn't come from real events. It comes from the stories your mind builds around them. You replay moments, assume meanings, and fill silence with predictions. That habit makes simple situations feel heavier than they truly are. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus taught that peace begins when you separate what you can shape from what you can't. Your decisions, your effort, your attitude, these belong to you. But someone else's opinion, mood, or thoughts, those are outside your reach. No matter how much time you spend imagining them, yet most of us spend more time worrying about possibilities than focusing on what's right in front of us. Your mind tries to protect you by preparing for everything, but most of those imagined scenarios never happen. They just clutter your thoughts and pull you away from the present moment. Epictetus didn't live calmly because life was easy. He lived calmly because he refused to carry what wasn't his responsibility. When you keep your attention on what you can actually direct, your day feels lighter. Your choices feel clearer. You stop getting lost in worries that were never real, and slowly life becomes more manageable, not because everything changes, but because you finally see what's truly yours. Too old. Chapter 2. The Spotlight. Chapter 2. The spotlight illusion. Illusion. Most of the fear you feel around other people comes from one simple belief that everyone is paying close attention to you. But they aren't. People are busy carrying their own doubts, chasing their own goals, and managing their own worries. They might glance your way, but their thoughts return to themselves almost instantly. Modern psychology calls this the spotlight effect, the idea that you're at the center of everyone's awareness, when in reality you barely register. The Stoics knew this long before it was studied. They saw how ego exaggerates everything, every mistake, every reaction, every look. It convinces you that you're constantly being observed, but life moves too fast for that. People forget quickly. The thing you thought they noticed, they probably didn't. And even if they did, it didn't stay with them for long. When you really understand this, auge amount of pressure drops away. You stop rehearsing your lines. You stop editing yourself. You begin to move through the world with a little more ease. And that small shift opens the door to something you've always wanted. The ability to be yourself without constantly watching yourself. Chapter 3. The Pain of Living. Chapter 3. Living through others' eyes. Through others' eyes, you can lose yourself without even realizing it. One small compromise at a time. A softened opinion here. A forced smile there. You change how you speak, how you act, how you think. All to avoid disappointing someone or to blend into whatever room you're standing in. The problem is that every time you reshape yourself to please someone else, you drift a little further from who you actually are. And eventually, you look in the mirror and feel a quiet disconnect, as if you're living someone else's life. The Stoics wrote about this often. They believed that letting outside approval define you is one of the fastest ways to weaken your sense of self. Because when your identity depends on the crowd gets to decide your worth, and crowds change their mind all the time. You don't need to rebel against everyone. You don't need to be loud or defiant. You just need to stop handing out permission slips for your own identity. The more you choose your values over their expectations, the stronger and more grounded you become. And slowly you return to yourself. Not the version shaped by others, but the one you've been missing. Chapter 4. The Stoic. Chapter 4. Inner Authority. Practice of inner authority. Marcus Aurelius wrote privately because he understood something most people never learn. If you don't guide your own mind, the world will guide it for you. He wasn't writing for praise. He wasn't writing to appear wise. He was writing to build an inner voice strong enough to navigate life without constantly seeking approval. Inner authority is simple. Your choices come from your values, not from reactions to what others expect. It doesn't mean ignoring people or resisting advice. It means you decide which opinions matter and which ones pass through you without impact. When you live without inner authority, every comment becomes a command. Every raised eyebrow becomes a warning. Every silence feels like disapproval. You end up adjusting yourself to avoid friction instead of moving toward what genuinely matters. But when you build your own inner compass, the world quiets down. You don't need constant reassurance because your direction is clear. You don't need validation because you trust your reasoning. And once your actions come from a place you believe in, outside judgment loses its grip. Chapter 5. Being misunderstood. 5. The courage to be misunderstood. If you want to live with clarity, you have to accept something uncomfortable. Not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. You can be honest, balanced, thoughtful, and still, people will misread your intentions. You can choose growth, and some will call it change. You can say no, and someone will take it personally. The Stoics embraced this early. They knew that chasing universal approval was impossible because everyone views the world through their own fears and beliefs. So even the most reasonable choice can look strange to the wrong person. When you accept that, misunderstanding is part of life. You stop bending yourself into shapes that don't fit. You start making choices based on what's right, not what's popular. And instead of explaining your every move, you simply move. This kind of courage doesn't feel loud. It feels steady, like a quiet refusal to abandon your path just to keep everyone comfortable. And ironically, the moment you stop trying to be understood is the moment you finally begin to understand yourself. Chapter 6. Detaching from Chapter 6. Praise and criticism. Praise and criticism. It's easy to think the real problem is criticism, but praise can be just as limiting. If compliments lift you too high, negativity will crush you, just as both reactions tie your worth to external noise, and both take you away from your own judgment. Stoics aimed for steadiness, not indifference, but balance. They didn't want their mood to swing depending on what others said. They wanted to live from the inside out, not the outside in. You've probably felt the trap before, doing something well and immediately checking who noticed or holding back from trying something new, because you fear the comments that might follow. Praise and criticism become two sides of the same leash. But when you start acting for the sake of the action itself, everything changes. You focus more on growth than approval. You judge your decisions by your own standard, not by how loudly others react. And that's where real confidence grows. Not from being admired, but from being anchored. Chapter 7. Building your own standard. Chapter 7. Building your own standard. The moment you begin setting your own standard, you stop needing the world's. Most people drift because they've never defined what good means for them, what integrity looks like, how they want to show up, what they expect from themselves. Without that inner foundation, you automatically absorb the expectations of whoever you're around. Stoics lived by a clear personal code, not a list of rigid rules, but a quiet understanding of what kind of person they aimed to become. That clarity made their choices simpler. It gave them direction, even when life felt uncertain. When you build your own standard, your decisions become cleaner. You don't feel the need to impress. You stop adjusting yourself, depending on the room you're in. You start saying yes and no with conviction. You realize you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent with the person you've chosen to be. And once your standard becomes a thing you measure yourself against, outside opinions lose their influence because you've already decided who you are. Chapter 8. The quiet life of Chapter 8. An outro. The quiet life of self-respect. Self-respect, freedom, isn't loud. It's subtle. It's the calm that comes from not needing approval to feel complete. It's the strength of acting from your values, not someone else's expectations. It's the peace that comes from trusting your own judgment. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that you don't need to win everyone over. You just need to be aligned with yourself. The Stoics weren't trying to be admired. They were trying to live clearly, and clarity creates a kind of peace that no opinion can give or take away. You stop caring what people think. The moment you start caring about who you're becoming, walk your path. Hold your standard. Respect yourself. That's Stoic freedom.